began with a breakup, ordinary, painful, and forgettable to everyone but her. But for Sakiyna Thompson, heartbreak didn't fade. It metastasized. On a warm May morning, she boarded a flight from New York to Florida. No luggage, no hotel reservation, just a single purpose she carried like a shadow. Across the country, 23-year-old Kayla Hodgson woke up unaware that her name had been spoken with obsession for months, that her existence had become the center of someone else's unraveling. This is a story of jealousy sharpened into violence, of a love triangle that never existed, except in the mind of the woman who believed she'd been replaced. By the end of the day, one woman would be dead, and another would confess to a crime she had crossed state lines to commit. What makes someone travel more than 1,000 miles to kill a stranger? And how does heartbreak turn into murder? This is the story of the tragic murder of Kayla Hodgson, a tragic tale of what happens when jealousy and envy collide, when a broken heart mistakes possession for love, and a single moment of rage shatters countless lives beyond repair. In every murder investigation, one question guides everything. Who had the motive, the means, and the opportunity? It's the question detectives ask when the trail runs cold. It's what turns random evidence into a case, and a suspect into a killer. In today's story, we're breaking down a case that seemed picture-perfect on the outside. But when the truth came out, it was fueled by obsession, jealousy, and premeditated violence. This is not just a story about murder. It's about control, about rage, about what happens when fame and ego collide, and someone doesn't walk away. Let's investigate. Kayla Hodgson was only 23 when her life intersected with a storm she never created. A Florida college student with a bright, unassuming future, she had recently begun dating a man whose past relationship remained a live wire, something she sensed but never fully understood. Behind the easy smile of her new boyfriend, there was history, an ex-girlfriend who couldn't let go, whose heartache had hardened into obsession. That ex-girlfriend was Sakiyna Thompson, a 28-year-old woman living in New York who had spent months spiraling over the end of her relationship. What began as heartbreak deepened into fixation. What began as fixation metastasized into rage. And when Thompson learned he had moved on with Kayla, everything detonated. Tension between Thompson and Kayla grew quietly at first, mostly through Thompson's private anger, messages to friends, and confrontations with the ex-boyfriend. She felt betrayed, discarded, and replaced. Her friends later recalled she spoke repeatedly about being hurt and about how seeing him with someone new felt like a wound reopening. She became consumed with the idea that Kayla was the reason her relationship failed. A belief prosecutors would later say was completely untrue, but pivotal in building her motive. Thompson's resentment escalated into planning. She bought a plane ticket, packed a knife, and flew more than 1,000 miles to confront the woman she had never met but already hated. On May 20th, 2022, Thompson arrived quietly in Northeast Florida. She knew where Kayla lived. She knew Kayla would be alone that morning, and she knew exactly why she was there. Authorities later testified that Thompson confronted Kayla inside her home. Whatever was said in those final moments is known only to the two of them, and only one survived to tell it. But the scene investigators found told the rest of the story. Kayla had been repeatedly stabbed, with defensive wounds showing she fought desperately for her life. She was pronounced dead at the scene. The brutality of the attack immediately pointed detectives toward a deeply personal motive. And when they discovered Thompson had flown in from New York that very day, with no other reason for travel, their suspicions turned into something else entirely. Kayla's boyfriend confirmed the turbulent history with Thompson. The arguments, the unwanted contact, the emotional volatility. Investigators labeled the motive early: jealousy and obsession. Kayla's closest friend told detectives that the weeks leading up to the murder were marked by a steady drumbeat of digital harassment, anonymous Instagram messages, late-night prank calls, and strange notifications that made Kayla feel watched. According to the friend, Kayla believed the behavior was coming from Sakiyna Thompson, her boyfriend's ex, whose resentment had been simmering for months. The friend went further, explaining that Kayla had grown terrified after learning that Thompson may have gained access to personal information through the ex-boyfriend's phone. Information that could have included Kayla's address, and real-time location. To investigators, it was the first chilling indication that Thompson's jealousy hadn't just been emotional, it had become operational. When investigators reviewed the screenshots Kayla's friend provided, taunting direct messages, veiled threats, and a string of unsettling notes that hinted at obsession, they recognized a pattern too deliberate to ignore. The friend also described allegedly unhinged behavior, including an incident where Thompson was said to have waited inside a local bar, seemingly prepared to confront Kayla face-to-face. With these accounts in hand, detectives could finally see the emotional engine behind the crime. Jealousy curdled into fixation, but suspicion wasn't enough. They turned to digital forensics to map Thompson's movements, pulling travel records, flight confirmations, and timestamps that traced her path from New York to Florida and back. Each data point, the one-way ticket purchased that morning, the rapid return flight, helped confirm what they already feared. Thompson not only had the motive, she had the means and the opportunity. Prosecutors later argued this was not a crime of passion, it was premeditation. DNA, surveillance footage, and a digital trail built an airtight case. Thompson had not been careful because she did not believe she would be caught, but within days the evidence towered over her. Detectives later reviewed apartment surveillance footage that, according to their case notes, appeared to show Thompson leaving the scene in clothes and shoes that were not her own, items investigators believed belonged to Kayla. Footage also captured her carrying what looked like a piece of Kayla's travel luggage as she exited the building, an unsettling detail that suggested a calmness utterly at odds with the violence that had just occurred. In interviews, Thompson herself admitted to attempting to clean the apartment before fleeing, a confession that only deepened the portrait of a calculated, if chaotic, escape. Combined with the threatening messages, the friend's account of prior harassment, the clear romantic motive, the documented flight records, and a trail of physical and digital evidence, detectives finally had enough to close the circle. The picture was complete. Thompson wasn't just a suspect, she was the only person who could have carried out the crime. Thompson was arrested and extradited to Florida to face charges of first-degree murder. The courtroom was cold, tense, and brimming with disbelief as prosecutors laid out the timeline. They painted a portrait of a woman driven by a jealous rage, one who believed that if she could not have her ex-boyfriend, no one else deserved peace with him either. The prosecution focused on 4 key elements. Thompson planned the killing before she boarded the plane. She traveled across state lines solely to confront and kill Kayla. The ex-boyfriend was the root of the tension, the emotional trigger that hardened into motive. Kayla posed no threat. She simply existed in the wrong place in the emotional aftermath of a relationship she never caused. Her lawyers attempted to argue emotional distress, lack of intent to kill, and mental instability. But the travel records, the weapon, the digital messages, and the violence of the attack overwhelmed any narrative of spontaneity. After a relatively swift trial, the jury returned its verdict, guilty of first-degree murder. Thompson was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. At its core, this was a crime about possession and emotional unraveling. Thompson could not accept that the relationship was over, and in her mind, the ex-boyfriend had betrayed her. Kayla was the symbol of everything she lost, and destroying Kayla felt like taking back control. Prosecutors described it as a lethal triangle of jealousy and obsession. Kayla, by all accounts, had nothing to do with their breakup, yet she paid the ultimate price for someone else's unresolved pain. Kayla's death devastated her family and community. Friends described her as kind, gentle, and excited about her future. She was a daughter, a friend, a young woman in love, navigating life authentically and openly. Her family has spoken about forgiveness, about not letting hatred grow from the senseless act that took her life. But they also speak of justice and of the need to recognize the warning signs of escalating emotional violence. A mind shaped by obsession, jealousy, and a collapsing sense of control, Sakiyna Thompson's descent into violence began with a fractured attachment to her ex-boyfriend. She could not accept the relationship's end. Instead, she clung to it with an obsessive fixation that grew more volatile the longer she was ignored. When he began dating Kayla Hodgson, Thompson didn't just feel replaced, she felt erased. Her thinking became rigid and absolutist. If she couldn't have him, no one could. This emotional spiral fed a dangerous blend of jealousy and entitlement. Kayla wasn't a person to Thompson. She was the embodiment of humiliation, rejection, and everything slipping out of her control. That symbolic fixation is what pushed her from brooding resentment into violent resolve. Though the killing appeared fueled by rage, her actions were chillingly organized. Booking a flight, traveling across states, carrying a weapon. It was an emotional crime wrapped around a calculated plan. Classic behavior in jealousy-driven homicide. At the core, Thompson's psychology reveals obsessive attachment, fragile self-worth easily ruptured by rejection, displaced rage toward the love interest, a desperate need to reclaim power. Kayla never wronged her. She simply represented the life Thompson believed she deserved and couldn't bear to lose. A tragic truth remains. Thompson's violence wasn't about love. It was about control slipping through her fingers and who she chose to blame for it. In the end, it's a tragic reminder of what happens when jealousy and envy collide, leaving devastation in their wake. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more true crime investigations.